Hi, you're right. Welcome to your final lesson of this unit on recycling. And as ever, 3 questions for you to have a go at before you start. Write down the answers and we'll look at them together at the end of the lesson. So how can aluminium be extracted from its ore? Think about your last lesson on extracting metals from their molten state. Number 2, what is a mixture? Number 3, what is one way humans are affecting climate change? Okay, so to start off, think about what do all of these things have in common? So plastics, metals, rocks, glass. What do they all have in common? Have a think about that. Pause the video. Here, the answer is that they are all things that we use every day and they come from the earth. Okay, so even things like plastics, which are man-made, come from crude oil, which is heated up to a certain point in order to allow us to manufacture it into plastics. Glass is made from sand, and obviously rocks that we use for construction and other things. Now, today's lesson is all about recycling. Now, you will all do recycling at home. You'll see the recycling lorries, you'll see recycling bins out when you go out, and you'll always see recycling posters and things encouraging you to recycle. But today what we're going to look at is what is the purpose of it, how does it work, and why is it such a useful thing to be able to do. Okay, we're going to look at a specific example. In the last lesson we looked at how aluminium was extracted from its ore. So in order to extract aluminium from its ore, you have to apply a huge amount of energy in order to melt it down into a liquid form, and then electricity is provided in order to separate it into its purest form. Now that requires huge amounts of energy, requires a huge amount of fossil fuels to be burnt, and a huge amount of carbon to be released into the atmosphere. So it's a polluting, high energy, very costly process. However, aluminium can be recycled. So if we look at the stages of an aluminium recycling plant, we can see here, first of all, aluminium is collected along with other metals from your recycling bin. So that is the first step in recycling. Second, recycling is collected, delivered to a special processing plant. Then, using the latest technology, all material streams are separated, so the different metals are separated. If there are any bits of plastic or anything else in there, it's all separated, so we just have the pure metals. Metal elements are melted and treated to make new raw materials. So rather than having to heat up the rock form of the ore for aluminium, to heat up aluminium on its own requires a far, far lower temperature. This can be rolled out into sheets, and then the recycled aluminium is now used in the production of new products. This is added labels and added the contents of the cans, and then goes back on the shelves. Can then be recycled and constantly reused. So any can that you buy from a supermarket can be put in a recycling bin, can go on to be reproduced and used as another can, or to be used in the body of a car, most of which are aluminium. So aluminium recycling requires far less energy, requires no mining to extract the ore in the first place, requires less heat in order to get it to be molten, and therefore saves us a huge amount of money and a huge amount of energy. So you will already know a lot about recycling, why it is useful, why it is important. Okay, think about the amount of stuff that could go to landfill instead being recycled and reused. So I want you to use this knowledge, do your own research to create a poster or leaflet to convince more people to recycle. You can either do this on paper or you can do it on Google Drive and send it to your teacher. So either a picture of something done on paper or the electronic copy, either is fine. Okay, so think about what you might need to include in order to encourage people. Remember, pictures, big, bold writing, information as well, in order to try and make it as clear as possible. What are the benefits and why should people do it? Okay, so quite a short lesson today, but a longer task. I always spend quite a while on that poster making activity, and we'll just quickly go through these last questions that we had for our starter. So how can aluminium be extracted from its ore? We talked about it in this video. It needs to be melted down into a molten state and then have an electric current pass through it in order to separate the aluminium from its other compounds. What is a mixture? It's when two or more elements are mixed together but are not chemically bonded. And number three, one way humans are affecting climate change. You could have talked about combustion, you could have talked about car pollution, factories, you could have talked about farming, the amount of methane produced by livestock. Any of those would have been acceptable. Okay. Right, there are a few more questions on the Google form for you to complete, and don't forget to spend some time on that poster. Make sure that it is colourful, bright, eye-catching, and informative, please.